It's a new week, and that means a brand new episode of Pixel Peak. Thanks for tuning in.
It's also our last episode of Season 4. For those that stuck around, thank you so much for your support.
We're all passionate about Pixel Peak, and it's so heartwarming to know that you are all watching every week.
Just like every week, we have plenty of news stories and your regularly scheduled analysis and review segments for you this week.
First up, Blizzard is trying to tighten their grip on rights with mods on their games. There's just a little bit of salt left from their lawsuit with Valve over Dota 2, and they are trying to prevent anything like that from happening again.
GeForce Now is also seeing even more of a decline as more companies drop out from NVIDIA's service. We've covered GeForce Now a couple of times on the show this season, but I don't think any of us expected it to end up where it has now.
And to wrap up this week's news, we have some updates from Nintendo on Animal Crossing New Horizons, and their final update to Super Mario Maker 2. There's a lot of content that we were surprised to see announced outside of a Nintendo Direct.
For this week's game review, assistant producer Bianca Bortoluzzi returns to give us her thoughts on the platforming and puzzle title Spirit of the North.
To wrap up our season finale, Nintendo Analyst Ruby Hall is joining us to chat about how Nintendo is branching out to other forms of entertainment.
We have a lot of things to cover this week, so let's head right into it. I'm Kristen Lawrence.
And I'm Sydney Thompson, and we hope you enjoy your stay here on Pixel Peak. With the release of Warcraft 3 Reforged, Blizzard changed the language used in its custom games policy for modders, or those who use the Blizzard games to create their own in-game content. The new policy is mostly the same, prohibiting the sale of modded versions of the game. However, with the new policy, the company added new restrictions that gives the developer almost complete control over custom games. Caroline Womack is an associate at Morrison Rothman, a Los Angeles-based firm that specializes in digital entertainment, intellectual property, and brand protection, with a focus on the video game industry. Womack commented, "Blizzard wants to be sure that it's getting as many rights to the content in custom games as possible. Blizzard's attempt to make the most of its legal rights can be traced back to Dota, Defense of the Ancients, a mod built on Warcraft 3's world editor originally released in 2003. A group of modders took the original game and stripped the game of its resource and building mechanics, which left an exciting combat game." Womack says Blizzard may have made many of the changes to its user agreement in light of what happened with Dota. Since Dota was a mod that was adopted by Valve, Blizzard only had certain rights over the game's assets. It did not have ownership of the name or the game's design. Womack responded to these changes saying, "Blizzard is making it extra clear that its ownership of custom games includes ownership of all of copyrightable creative elements contained in those custom games." Womack went on to say, "Determining the extent of copyright protection afforded to video games can be a little tricky. Courts have historically had a difficult time categorizing the original and creative elements of games, such as characters from other aspects that tend to be more functional, such as certain gameplay mechanics." She concluded her statement commenting, "We will almost certainly continue to see more stringent terms imposed by developers whose games rely on user-generated content as these games become more and more popular," she said.
GameStop has made a big announcement about their plan on how they will be dealing with the pandemic's impact on the business. This plan includes pay cuts, temporary leave for employees, and reopening of some stores. On March 21st, all of GameStop's stores in the US were closed. 1/3 staying entirely closed, while the other 2/3 continued with online orders and curbside pickup for customers. The curbside service has allowed GameStop to meet more than 90% of volume sales. The CEO of GameStop, George Sherman, will be having a temporary salary reduction of 50%. Chief Financial Officer Jim Bell and the other executives will be taking a temporary 30% salary reduction. It has also been stated that certain other employees will be receiving a reduction of pay between 10 to 30%. Transitioning to the reopening of stores, the reason for this is due to GameStop being unable to do lease payments. The reopening of the store's process will begin in Germany, Austria, Italy, South Carolina, and Georgia. It has been said that they plan on having less inventory, but have a special focus on items in demand, such as key hardware, software, and accessory products. Sales for GameStop have been dropping over the past years, and with the pandemic, they are trying to do what they can to be able to keep their business running.
NVIDIA's GeForce Now cloud gaming service has been controversial among game publishers. Unlike Google Stadia, GeForce lets users stream games purchased through other means like Uplay and the Epic Game Store. On Friday, April 24th, a wave of developers removed their games from the streaming service. This wave of publishers included Warner Bros., Xbox Game Studios, Codemasters, and Clay Entertainment. They follow after other publishers such as Bethesda and 2K Games. This has cut notable games from the service like Gears of War 4, Sea of Thieves, Halo the Master Chief Collection, and the Batman Arkham titles. NVIDIA did release a statement on their blog post with an update regarding the situation. The post focused on the games that were still available, and that 30 of the 40 most played games like Destiny and Warframe were still available on the service. The post also pointed out that Ubisoft's and Bandai Namco's game catalog was available to play. Phil Eisler, NVIDIA's vice president of GeForce Now, said, "Behind the scenes, we're working with digital game stores so publishers can tag their games for streaming on GeForce Now, right when they publish a game. This will help us bring more games to the library quicker, as well as provide a more stable catalog."
Nintendo is investigating reports of Nintendo Switch account breaches. Nintendo Switch users have recently taken to social media to report that their accounts have been breached, with hackers allegedly purchasing digital goods such as Fortnite V-Bucks. In retrospect of these reported incidents, Nintendo is encouraging users to enable two-factor authentication when logging into their Nintendo accounts. A Nintendo spokesperson commented saying, "We are aware of reports of unauthorized access to some Nintendo accounts, and we are investigating the situation." As of last Friday, over 160,000 accounts have been affected, and the situation is still ongoing. Nintendo is still seeking the source of this security breach, and will update both the Switch's software and their website once it's resolved.
Nintendo has recently announced new features coming to Animal Crossing New Horizons. These new additions are an expansion to the museum and the garden shop, along with other special events and activities to keep players occupied and entertained for the next few months. In May, players will be able to visit a mystery island with Rover the cat waiting. Rover has usually in the past shown up in the beginning when you customize your character, so there might be an expansion for character customization coming soon as well. The tour of the island will happen on May 1st through the 7th. The month of May will also celebrate International Museum Day, where players can collect stamps by viewing exhibits. This will apply to Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, but the number of stamps you will be able to collect will be limited. Museum Day will run from May 18th to May 31st. June will be the wedding season within Animal Crossing, where players can help Reese and Cyrus, the alpacas, take anniversary pictures. By doing this, players will be able to obtain wedding-themed items. Nintendo has mentioned new Nook challenges as well coming to the game soon, so keep an eye out.
Nintendo has recently announced a description for the final update to Super Mario Maker 2. The update comes with a big feature that's a World Maker mode that allows you to design a map and string together multiple courses in a Super Mario World style. Players will be able to create up to 8 worlds that can have up to 5 levels. These worlds can be combined in the Maker, so in the end, players can create a 40-level game. The update also brings new enemies and power-ups like the frog suit from Super Mario Bros. 3, balloon power from Super Mario World, and mushrooms that turn characters into sprites and throw items from Super Mario Bros. 2. The update became available for free on April 22nd, and while this is the last update, it's a good update to end with. That's all we have for this week's news, so let's pass it on to game reviewer Bianca Bortoluzzi for this week's game review of Spirit of the North.
Spirit of the North is a gorgeous and melodic game, but for how gorgeous it does struggle with keeping a consistent storyline. Spirit of the North was released in November of 2019 and was developed and produced by Infuse Studio. Merge Games also helped produce it. As I mentioned, it's a gorgeous game. It follows you as you play as a tiny, cute red fox, and honestly, the beginning of the game is like a walking simulator. You don't have much to do except admire what's surrounding you and ponder what happened to civilization before this. You walk through snowy hills following rock formations until you eventually come across a spirit of a fox, aka the Spirit of the North, aka the name of the game. The game has close to no text and is played silently, which makes sense since you are playing as a fox and, well, foxes don't speak. Anyway, the spirit and the fox eventually become friends. Best friends, actually. You can get a trophy for it. The spirit helps out the fox by offering up its powers to put these into these old relics that assist you in continuing the story. As for the story, it's a bit difficult to get a grasp of exactly what's going on, which I suppose is okay. I mean, it does leave room for mystery, but it is what it is. All of the environments are based around Iceland as you go through tundra, glaciers, and mountainsides, as well as rivers. As I played through the game, I felt like it was a mix of Journey or Rime and Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I mostly say Legend of Zelda because of the little spirit that follows you around like Navi did for Link. And the darkness taking over the land also reminds me of that as well. Kinda just gives off those Twilight Princess, you're a wolf vibes, but you're a tiny red fox in this case. It was fun and cute playing as a fox. I liked jumping around and running fast and all that, but the main star of the game was really the environment. I can't stop thinking about it or talking about it. I was in awe of it throughout 90% of the game, and the only time I wasn't thinking about it was in this really dark area, like a dungeon sort of, that the fox and spirit got stuck in. The game was also relatively easy. There wasn't anything that was really frustrating me besides trying to time certain jumps correctly. It's honestly a really relaxing game, especially with the soundtrack. It was mainly a piano and strings mixed with gentle sound of water running or wind blowing, stuff that could make you fall asleep, but it doesn't because the game is really good. I'm someone who usually plays really intense and fast-paced games as well. I mean, go look at my past reviews. Control, Jedi Fallen Order, Greedfall, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Oninaki, I could go on. But Spirit of the North was a really nice break from that, especially during a time where we can't leave our homes and see pretty new things. All we see are our bedrooms and basically, our houses. Seeing these landscapes and listening to calming music while playing as an adorable fox was definitely a calming and awesome experience. There are also shaman you have to save throughout the game as a bit of a side quest. Supposedly they worship foxes. I say supposedly because, as mentioned before, there are no spoken words in this game, so you just kind of assume everything. Like, why are there two foxes? Why is there a Spirit of the North? Why do I have to save shaman? Etc. There are 28 shaman altogether. You'd have to find their magic staff and then find their bodies to allow them to pass over to their spirit world. Their ghosts shoot out of the bodies and then bow to you as they progress into the afterlife. Throughout the game, I think I got about 15. They were really hard to find and were probably the only thing that frustrated me about the game besides those jumps. They aren't a requirement by any means, but it is cool to see the ones you did save in the spirit world when the fox is chosen to go there. You also get a trophy for it, so obviously I didn't get that trophy. As for the mystery surrounding the game, like I said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. There's so much storytelling that could have been done with some lore or spoken words, but that's just my personal opinion. I like stories that are driven to show and tell rather than just show. There are also a few glitches and FPS drops I experienced, but it wasn't anything that hindered my gaming experience, just something that they could maybe work on. As for gameplay, you get 3 really cool powers: a Spirit Bomb Bark, a Spirit Dash, and a chance to leave as the fox's spirit for a certain amount of time. The Spirit Dash was easily my favorite because it lets you go really fast for the majority of the game, and the Fox was rather slow. Even when you were sprinting, he would run out of stamina so fast, it was ridiculous. And as much as I like this common game, I still like to go fast and keep things interesting or else I'll get bored quickly. You could use all these powers to help get rid of the plague and continue the game. There are also these blue flowers that you can bark at, and the spirit will come over and unleash a light from within, giving you the power to bring that light to these old relics lying around, or give you the power to use the spirit bomb bark, the dash, or the whole leaving your fox body thing. The end of the game was a bit rushed for my taste. I don't want to spoil it, so I'll keep it vague, but it became less about the plague and the shamans in the end. To suddenly change the objective like that with only 2 chapters left was weird pacing, but it is what it is. I feel like they could have done more with the game. Maybe more chapters and more shaman, perhaps something to explain the story more. There were these giant wall murals that you could light up which showed a civilization before this plague, but that's it. I feel that Spirit of the North was more for visuals than it was for story or gameplay. And altogether, I did enjoy the game. It was only about 4.5 hours of gameplay, but it was nice to play on a free afternoon. The story highlights best friends, caring for your Earth, and finding your purpose in life. I'd rate this a great game. I wanted to review an indie title, seeing as we did a huge game like Final Fantasy VII Remake last week. It was a nice sweet game to close out this season of Pixel Peak. Please stay safe and have an awesome summer, everyone.
Nintendo has always been cautious to expand to other mediums outside of the video gaming. But over recent years, they have made a lot of steps to expand and get their name out there to more people. Here to talk with us about how Nintendo is growing is our Nintendo Analyst, Ruby Hall. Thanks so much for joining us, Ruby.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into the first question. With Nintendo's recent implementation of mobile apps and subscription models, do you think that this is a good way for them to stay relevant?
I think it's kind of weird because Nintendo has kind of had the reputation of being the company not to do this. Like back during like the 2010 era, they were like the one company who didn't charge a subscription service to pay online. Now they're charging a subscription service to pay online. But it is kind of a weak offering because they don't offer dedicated servers. They still have a peer-to-peer connection. But they do throw in some good ideas, like with providing the NES and SNES games. Though it is still kind of lacking overall with their mobile app subscriptions. A lot of people have been saying like these are like not really that great of a value, especially in their Mario Kart app. So it is kind of weird. They have some successes and some shortcomings, but I think they can get there.
Well, that's interesting for sure. My next question is, Detective Pikachu saw some box office success last year. Does Nintendo have any plans to expand on cinema in the near future, with a possible Mario in 2020?
So yeah, they've definitely been working on that Mario movie. They've been teaming up with Illumination Entertainment, which is it's an animation studio that makes like okay movies, but maybe Nintendo can turn around on that reputation if they're keeping a close eye on production. But this is definitely like Detective Pikachu was definitely their not first endeavor movies. Even going back to 1993, they also had a Mario movie then. And that was an experience to watch. It was kind of a flop of a movie, especially getting like lower ratings, like a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I feel like they can come back from this and really make something cool.
Oh yeah, it's definitely interesting to look back on that movie from how long ago it was. But my next question is, do you know any details about Nintendo's theme parks plans in Orlando?
So the Nintendo theme park is planned to be an expansion to the Universal theme park. It's expected to open around 2023, and it's going to have a lot of Nintendo-related IPs there as attractions.
That's interesting. What do you think adds to Nintendo's recent financial success with Animal Crossing's New Horizons, with the 5 million copies they sold in just a month alone?
The biggest factor to this is that a lot of people are staying inside, and people have been playing games to pass the time. Not only has Animal Crossing been one of the most popular games from Nintendo, but just the Switch in general has been immensely popular. with the system seeing a huge increase in sales and even getting shortages in some areas. And also the physical games are in a bit of a shortage as well.
Could Nintendo rival media giants such as Disney or Amazon? Like some investors have been claiming?
I think Nintendo can eventually get there. The game industry has been absolutely booming. They've recently surpassed other industries such as movies and music in total revenue. So they can definitely get to just that like gigantic state. It's really a race on which company will do it first, because Nintendo does have competitors.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But as you can tell from this interview as well, Nintendo has been on a huge success. How could they keep that success rolling?
Well, Nintendo's success has overall just been coming from risks. So back when they released the Wii in the early 2000s, that was a huge risk to make because that was the first console they decided to not market to just gamers, but just to everyone with a really simple control scheme. And you really saw how that turned out to be a ginormous success. So taking risks is nothing new to Nintendo. So reaching out like this can really bring them success, as it's done so in the past.
Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us, Ruby. The future looks pretty bright for Nintendo. But that's all we have for this week's analysis, so I'm going to pass it back to Kristen and Sydney to wrap up our season finale.
And that's all we have for this week's episode. Thanks for joining us for hopefully our last remote production.
We know we told you that this was the season finale, but we actually have a surprise for you coming later this week to really wrap up this week's show.
To know when our season wrap-up will drop, keep up to date with our social media by liking and following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PixelPeak@TV.
When we come back from the break, our schedule may change, but you can still watch reruns on App TV's YouTube channel, watchapptv.com, Skybest channels 20 and 1020, Spectrum channel 198, and on App State's Campus Television channel 23.3.
And we couldn't have brought you the finale to Season 4 without our fantastic crew. Thanks to writers Jalen Curtin and Rebecca Larson, Nintendo analyst Ruby Hall, and producers Tanner Mazzell, Bianca Bortoluzzi, Elise Taylor, and Sydney Thompson for bringing us another episode in this pandemic.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you enjoy your stay here
on Pixel Peak.